Good day, all. Welcome to Brusader. So I've been watching Rugby League and Rugby Union for a very long time since I was very little. I knew a lot about Rugby League because it's pretty basic when I was small, but Rugby Union I didn't know much about. I knew less than I knew about Rugby League because Rugby League is a big sport in Papua New Guinea, and I was raised and brought up in Papua New Guinea my first 15, 16 years of my life. So rugby league was a big part of my childhood because it's what I watch most of the time. State of Origin, Kangaroos, Kumuls, you name it. Everything to do with rugby league I knew about because it's what I watch most of the time. I watched Rugby Union a bit growing up, and I knew a bit about it, but I didn't know everything about it. I would say I knew at least 60% of Rugby Union, and it's only when I moved to Australia that I learned 100% of what Rugby Union is all about. And at the time, like, I knew about scrums and tries and how many players were involved and stuff like that. But I didn't know much about lineouts. I didn't know much about the how rugby union was played in the set piece and all of that. So, and I didn't know about the phases, how many phases and stuff, and rocks and lineouts. Lineouts, I said already. But I won't start the video game because whatever I say is straight from my head. I don't really write a script or anything for this stuff. What I'll tell you today is everything I learned while now, since I was small until now, about rugby union and rugby league, and I still watch both sports these days. I played rugby union at school, and I grew up watching rugby league because PNG's national sport is rugby league, and I grew up in PNG, so that's the case. So the basics, the basic differences between rugby league and rugby union. So I'll be telling you the differences between both sports, even though they're both called rugby, rugby league, rugby union. In New Zealand, they actually call rugby union just rugby, and they call rugby league rugby league. So because rugby union is more of their sport, so they call rugby union rugby. But in Papua New Guinea, rugby league is more of their sport, and they seem to call rugby league rugby. So it it's wherever you are, like which rugby is more important to you, you say rugby. But which is less important in your country, you just say the full name. So New Zealand they say rugby to rugby union and rugby league to rugby league. In PNG they say rugby to rugby league and rugby union. So it just depends where you are, which rugby you want to say is rugby, and then you say the other rugby as its full name. So the basic differences between rugby league and rugby union is they start off as the starting team is 15 players in rugby union, and in rugby league there's 13 players in the starting team. And on the bench, there used to be 7 players on a rugby union bench, but these days, I think it started after 2010 or something. Now they have 8 players on the bench. Before they had 7 players, they now have 8 players. So they added one more new position, and that's another prop on the bench. So each team can have 2 props on the bench rather than one like before. In Rugby Union, there was only one prop on the bench you could select, but now you can select 2 on the bench. And in Rugby League, there's only 4 players on the bench. So the difference on the bench is 8 players to 4 players. But now that Rugby League has this concussion rule where when 3 players are concussed because of foul play and stuff, that they can bring in 18th man to cover the loss of those 3 players because of foul play. So that's the players. Now the tries. In Rugby League, a try is 4 points. In Rugby Union, a try is 5 points. A conversion in Rugby League is 2 points. A conversion in Rugby Union is also 2 points. So because it's 5 points for a try in Rugby Union and 4 points for a try in Rugby League, 4 plus 2 if you kick the conversion is 6 points. And 5 plus 2 is 7 points in Rugby Union for the full complement if you kick the conversion as well. In Rugby League, in general play, there's only 6 tackles that you can hold the ball for. So if they tackle you 6 times, you have to kick the ball away and try and give the ball away to the other opposition, or you can kick the ball to try and regather it again. But in Rugby Union, there's no limit for how many tackles they tackle you for before you can kick the ball. And you can even kick the ball on the first tackle. Rugby Union is so flexible. It doesn't matter when you kick the ball or how long you are tackled for. So they can tackle you for 20 times, bring you to the ground, and you'll still be playing on and you don't have to kick the ball away. So they call it phases in Rugby Union when that happens. So if it's 22 tackles now, so after 20 tackles, they tackle you another 2 times. That's 22 phases you have the ball for. So Rugby Union is flexible in that way that it doesn't matter how long you hold the ball for, you can keep holding the ball and you can kick the ball anytime you want. It doesn't have to be 6 tackles. Rugby League, you can kick early in the tackle count as well, but you're trying to kick it just to try and gain an advantage. Either 40-20 kick, where you kick it from down the 40 to the other team's 20. And in Rugby League, in scrums, Rugby League, they don't push. You hardly see a push in Rugby League, but there's no contested scrums in Rugby League. But in Rugby Union, there's contested scrums. Every scrum is a contest. So that's why a prop is very valuable in rugby, is more valuable in Rugby Union than it is to Rugby League, because a prop can really win you a game in Rugby Union just by scrummaging. Scrummaging the contested scrums, it can get the win the scrum props and hookers, the front row, the front 5. they can win the scrum for you, and you can get a penalty out of it, or you can just get possession, which is really important in both sports. Possession is very important, and if a team is winning the scrum all the time in the contested scrum in rugby union, they have the ball majority of the time. So scrums are very important in rugby union. Not so much. It's not scrums are not important in rugby league because there's no contest in a scrum. But in rugby union, big it's a very big advantage to have a good who can scrum, or good props that can scrum. If you have two good props in the front row, you'll be winning the ball and contesting it all the time. And with possession, you can score points. Without possession, you all know what possession is. Possession is very important to have. So the other differences is in rugby league, when a ball goes out, it's just a scrum or a tap. So you can't really contest that as well in rugby league. So if a ball goes out in rugby league, you can't contest it to try and win it. You can't. It's not a 50-50 ball. It's always going to be the team who kicks it out. The other team will get the ball because they kicked it out, or it touched their foot and it went out. But in rugby union, that's also a 50-50 contest. It's always a contest in rugby union because in rugby union it's a line out, and in line outs the other team has a chance of regaining the ball. Even though it went out because of them, they still have a chance of regaining the ball because both teams have a 50-50 chance of a line out. And if the team that's doing the line out at their own throw, if the hooker doesn't throw it straight, then it's a penalty against them. So rugby union, it's always a contest, always 50-50 ball. But in rugby league, it's not like that. So far, the scrum and lineouts, it's always 50-50 ball in rugby union because there's contest in both scrum and lineouts. But in rugby league, there's no contest for the ball. You just give the ball to the team that has possession because you kicked it out or it came out of you. So that's so far the scrum and lineouts, but there's more in rucking. So while rucking is another big part of rugby union, if you have good ruckers are mainly anyone can be a rucker these days, but mainly it used to be the 7 and 6, the flankers or the second rowers who would get in there and do the tough stuff. But nowadays you see even backs get in there and ruck, but it hardly happens that backs get in there. But whenever the forwards can't get there, the backs do get in there, and the backs are more fitter, it seems, these days. And teams seem to make that players be good at rucks these days, so they don't always always don't depend on the flankers and the number 8 or the second rowers and the forwards, the props, to do any rucking. But you see that in rugby union, it's always the good flankers and the good number 8s, the good second rowers who win the rucks. And rucking is also a 50-50 ball. It's always a contest. But in rugby league, when it's a ruck, it's not a contest as well. It's just that team's ball. They use the ball for six times or under 6 times, and then they give the possession away. But in rugby union, they're always fighting for possession. They're always getting in there, trying to move the player off the ball and legally ruck to try and get the ball away from the other team. So what I said about 22 phases, that's if a team can rock well. If a team rocks well, they can hold a ball for as long as they want. But if a team doesn't know how to rock well, then the other team can always steal possession by rocking and getting over the ball during a contest. But you gotta get onto the ball quick. If you if you're doing rocks and you try to get in there late or you get in from the side, it's a penalty. You're giving a penalty away. So you always have to have a good timing in the rocks. So that's what rugby union is. So the scrum is a 50-50. If you have good props, a good front five, a good forward pack that can scrum, mainly props because they're in the front row, then you'll win your scrums. And if you have good jumpers who can who who have good lifters who can time the lift well and jumpers who can win the ball, then the possession will always be yours. And that's the scrum is mainly the props. A good prop always controls a scrum, just like a good second rower always wins his ball at line-out time. But sometimes they do get flankers who are tall, who can line out as well. But these flankers are usually like second row flankers, like they're flankers who can also play second row. So just like Peter Steph Detroit from South Africa, he used to be a second rower, but now he's playing flanker at number 7. But he's sometimes, even though he plays flanker, he jumps because he used to be a second rower. So that's the good thing about having flankers as well who can line out because you don't always have to rely on your second rowers to do the jumping. And in rucking, it's mainly the back row who win the ball for you. So it's either the number 6 flanker, the blindside flanker, the number 7 flanker, the open side flanker, as it's also known, and the number 8. The man who also can win a ruck for you, but even second rowers can win rucks these days. Second rowers who are mobile and can get to the ruck fast and can get onto that ball. Even second rowers are helping out the flankers. So it shows that the whole forward pack from 1 to 8 have a big role to play in the contests of a rugby union game. The props, the hooker, who make up the front row, the second rowers, and the back row, the flanker and number 8s. That's why if you can have a very good forward pack in a rugby union, it goes a long way of winning rugby union matches. And and if they're winning all these penalties for you, thanks to their good contests in the ruck, in the scrum, in the lineouts, and then you have a good number 10, a good fly half, or whoever can kick goals for you, just kick penalty goals, you're just adding up points all the time. So if you're winning those contests all the time, this is why they say that forwards win you the games. It's the backs that determine how much the you're gonna win by. But it's the forwards that always win the matches, but the backs determine how much the score will be won by. So you can see that rugby league, there's no contest in a scrum. There's no contest in a line out when the ball goes out. It's either just a scrum that's no contest as well. or it's just a tap, no contest, and and there's no real rock in rugby league. So those are the really big differences between both sports that I've had highlighted from the top of my head. But and rugby union is more of a world game than rugby league. Rugby league still striving to be like rugby union globally. Um, there's no comparison. Union is more competitive because there's more contest, but rugby league is physical as well. Rugby league is physical. They're both physical sports, but in terms of contest for possession, rugby union is more of that game where there's more contest for possession. Rugby league, it's either you have the possession and then you just have to give it up after 6 tackles, and then the other team gets the ball. They have the possession and then they give the ball up after 6 tackles. There's not really much to it. It's just run hard, tackle hard. Rugby league, rugby union is more of a contest, and they still run hard, tackle hard, but there's more to the contest in rugby union than there is in rugby league. So that's right from the top of my head what rugby union and rugby league, the differences of both sports are. They're both physical games, so it's not a game for the faint-hearted. It's a game for those who are strong-willed and those who are not afraid to take hits, because there's always hits. Some are legal hits, some are illegal hits, but it's all part of the game. Illegal hits are not part of the game. That's why there's always there's always like cards for that, red card, yellow card. Depends how high they get them or how serious the tackle is. Yeah. So this is just part one of the differences between rugby league and rugby union. But what I've said today right now is pretty much everything. If I think of anything else that pops up in my mind, I'll make a video for part two. So thanks for watching, guys, and hope you enjoy your rugby league and rugby union.